Hello, everyone. When I got this invitation, I was thinking that I didn't want to just come and show you some videos of my work, because I find that a little bit boring for you and for me in a way. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how my practice has moved, showing examples. Like, I will show you two videos that are quite old, and there is an arch that I have seen in my practice that has to do with positioning yourself with what you're doing. So all what I will show you has to do with that, and how thinking differently on how you relate to the things, you start creating different kind of performances and move into different media. So I will start by showing a video. My background is as a dancer, and it's like 2 decades ago that I was dancing, and this video is not that old, but it's one of the last things I did with dance. And basically what happened in the performance was just us moving. So I want to start with that way of working with the body as the media itself. So I'll show you a few minutes of this.
Do what you have to do, Cristina. God and audience are watching. Feel honestly, just like me. And she said, "I hope you know that I can. That is so fast." I thought she must be crazy. You're telling me how to like to forget there's nothing you will understand what's happened. Except you dropping a pencil, you almost fall apart, you say things you don't mean at the wrong time, you're losing control. You want to find yourself, your perfectly imperfect self, to show the world that imperfection is the only truth and no way to replace it. But then you fail to cherish yourself when you are perfect. You can actually only think about little imperfection because if this or that little shift this and never think never always think about that and I should
So I wanted to start with this video because in dance there are several ways of working with the body. And this kind of dance, I said that it's experimental, within dance, and it's framed in experimental theater. There are different ways to work as a performer, and one is that you want to know how the body works, so you learn the mechanics of the body. And this is a school that started like in the 70s with all this research in New York. And basically what you do is that you study the mechanism of the body, and there are a lot of techniques developed through these studies. And then you end up with a movement that looks a little bit like this. So there are not many like fixed forms that would force the body to do things like in ballet. So I wanted to start with this because it means that you are positioning yourself with your media, in the sense that I want to understand the tool that I have, and I want to work with it, can give me what it is. And another axis is to think about the tool as the technique itself. So there are techniques that have certain forms that you always have to repeat them in order to manage the technique. So then there are these techniques which are a little bit harder on the body, that you have to, I don't know if you have seen something like Graham technique, which is like all these models of movement that you have to learn, and your body needs to change in order to embody them. And those are codes that you repeat in the choreographies. So the first positioning I wanted to talk, well, if you saw the annotation of today, I want to bring 3 words into thinking performance, which is one, positioning yourself with your tools, with your material. And yeah, so now I'm going to show you another example of something that's also a bit old. But I find that there was a movement in the way how I positioned myself. In this, you can say that the subject is the center of what's happening. Like, there's nothing more. It's like the person, the energy, the movement, and we don't have gestures. So if you imagine like an actor, then it will all be depending on how he's speaking, how he's looking at you, and so on. So all the situation, the event happens in the person. Okay, now I'll show you another thing. I'm going to go back a little bit. Sorry. Okay, here. This is a work that I'll just change the frame where we stop. So this is a work that it's like 2004, 2003, I started working with this. It's a work that is based on Francis Bacon's triptychs. So if you know his work, I think you can find the references of this image and the next one. The thing that I wanted to show you here is that the way this scene was created was experimenting with the objects. So first it was a little bit of finding how to wear magnets in my body. And then with that, add other kind of relationships within the object to create this image. And as a performer, I don't need to generate any sort of tension or drama, or in the sense of use my emotions and construct a whole situation out of my imagination, but it's very mechanic. So basically, I just need to put the magnets in as the goggles, and then I have to keep my breath in and go inside very precisely into this bowl, and then slowly go out. And what you have is a very existential image, just adding these ingredients. And I think this is a completely different way of working with yourself as a performer, because you are decentering yourself as a subject, that you are carrying the whole message that you need to express through the movement or through your gesture. And the things around you help you to build the moment and to give content to what you're looking at. So basically it's a recipe that anybody could do, and you will end up having this kind of harsh image or situation that could trigger many different meanings. And the way how I imagine this in space, going back to the positioning, is that, okay, and then you will have to bear with me that there will be some drawings that will stay in the screen. So the next videos you will see them. So in the first one, imagine, okay, this is the event, right? And the subject is in the center of the event. Everything which happens through the subject. And in this kind of work, what is happening is that you have, the subject is not only a subject, but the subject is eyes, that it's wearing the goggles, that these are wearing the magnets and interact with the nails or magnetism. And then you have, okay, yes, of course, the head and the bowl and the water and the breathing. You know, so there is all these relationships in between the objects and yourself that are happening. So in a way, yes, you decide that you have to do the thing and you have to put your head there. And of course, I'm not saying that I'm not, you know, the center of this action. Yes, I am in a way, I am triggering it. But how it is built, the positioning is through relationships of things and using the body as one more of these things. So you end up with a kind of a mechanism or a system. And that created the movement to go into installation. And from installation, I moved to video. So the next thing I want to show you has to do with this kind of arrangement, but with image. So what's happening here is that I'm working with a closed circuit, and you can see the hands on the left side that are moving, and all what you saw is created live. So what happened here was, again, a relationship between the elements, the body as part of one of the elements, but now there are other bodies as well in the image. So the relationship became a little bit more complicated. And this is where I would like to talk about permeability as this quality of letting things affect you, not only you affecting and building things, designing them, but also how things actually are provoking you or adding to what you, or limiting you, but using that as a way to have a conversation with the thing you're working with. And I really like the word permeability for this case. This is a project that, it's a project of intervention of several films. This is a Mexican film. The project is What She Does. Actually, a long time ago, I was performing in this place, something like this. And I like this concept of permeability, you know, like how water infiltrates through something. And for me, this idea of the image in the screen that is like the flat image that you cannot change, that is filmed, that it's done, it's finished, then it's actually permeable. And this was something that was very exciting for me to discover, how this image could still host me and how I could actually be with it. So the technique has been, it has grown through the years. I started like in 2013 with this work, this kind of work. And so, yes, so now this what you just saw is the beginning of a B-movie, B-film, Mexican film from Lucha Libre. It's the saint against the vampire women. So I have a project that probably we will perform here, actually, I think. Yeah, next year. And yes, so I think like here is it can be a little bit more clear how positioning myself in the work. I just want to show you maybe more light. Yeah. For example, this is another moment. So I have this table here with all the things that I need to do, those visual tricks. Everything is done just with materials and objects. And yeah, so it's like a laboratory happening in the moment. Okay. So this is a little bit of a study on how I am starting to have a dialogue with the image from zero. So I start in the stage alone. I filmed that video projection you're looking at now. I filmed that during the performance in the beginning, and then I do this kind of doubled image for some time. It's occurring in silence, so the audio is fine. It's just like that. And then that evolves to overlapping these two images. I'm going to just jump a little bit through it. A bit more. Okay. I'm going to jump a little bit. So this is again, everything is a closed circuit, basically. Everything is done live, and you have this double presence of a mediated presence with the physical presence. Okay, I think you get it. It's like also the time is stretched because somehow this performance, the name of this performance is stereo presence, and I was interested in these two ways of being present, the virtual, mediated, and physical. And the performance was dealing with the topic of multiple realities, and Alzheimer also included in that category of existing in multiple places at the same time. So basically here the coordination was not with the objects or like the presence of the body is really just one more element of actually the physical relationship between a camera and a projector, because basically all that is made with feedback. So, and this thing that it's quite all the feedback turned out to be also like an element of media that you can establish a dialogue with and use it to create certain moments of confusion. Specifically in this part is dealing with jumping into a personal reality that sometimes doesn't match the reality of other people, so it has no logic, as is in the case of the Alzheimer. And with this, I also wanted to show you another moment where there is like this kind of, let me see, 47:15. It's this peeling of layers, because again, it's a reference of permeability and how the possibility to work with the image as an object and to be included in the image is creating different layers and different meanings through that. And none of these images was thought as, of course, there are references to video artists that you might recognize here, but somehow the images were not meant as the research was more like how to work with the media, with the projections, with the transparencies of the projections, with the refilming and filming again, and filming live the projections, and that's how the whole performance was built. It was not really like, oh, I want to see a landscape, and in this landscape I want to find this person who is doing this action. But it was all really like time spending with the things, and choosing what somehow translated or felt right to the thing that we were doing. It's a very silent performance, as you might notice. There's almost no audio. And unfortunately, it's never possible to capture fairly the performances, but this thing that you're seeing now, it's completely bidimensional, but when you see it live, there is depth to it. So that actually translates into a little bit of more confusion of what layer is where and who is doing what. Yeah. Okay. Yes, so now I would like to, so this is the work that that emerged with working with the video as a partner. And back then, when I was a dancer, there is this contact improvisation technique that you basically work with the mechanics of the body with another person, and it's completely a kind of freestyle, so you never know what will happen. And in a way, that's the relationship that I established with these kind of systems and the image, that we're constantly kind of completing each other. And now I can't imagine to do something without this partner. So I would like to show you now another branch of the work that started with maybe you know Dan Gregor or Floex, Initi. Yes, so some time ago we did this together, also Andrei and Peter Scala, back then. Okay, so Theorem of Wanting was something we premiered in Nod and in Prague, and it was a performance. Before I play it, I would like to just give you a little bit of context. is a performance that basically used some answers of the audience to include them during the performance. So, for example, this moment, when you arrive to the performance, you will be offered 3 different ways to enter the performance. The performance was all the time reflecting on what is this thing of wanting, how it operates. And you would choose one of these 3 ways. So you will end up contributing to the performance in different ways according to this. Some people will enter the performance and we would record their voices of what they wanted in that precise moment. That would later become like a background sound for an improvisation. Other people chose to learn some techniques of Feldenkrais to focus on what you want. So these people are the ones that are here now. The faces you see in the background are the ones that were recording their voices, and now these ones that are standing here as an army are the second group.
To the center, and really fast, right and center, right and center. Make a circle with your hand on top of the object. Change the object to the other hand. Open your eyes and look again to the right side, head on the side, and again go to the left side. Circles on the very left. Center. Change from one hand to the other.
I'm gonna skip a little bit.
Wanting to come. I want to look far away from here in this excitement. I want to...
The performance was built in different sections referencing media. And one of those sections was these contests where you are always winning something. So then there was this person who chose an object she wanted to keep, and then she would go through these 3 questions, and if you want the spoon or the hammer, and in the end, the thing is that what she wanted was always destroyed in front of her and then repaired. So if she chose the spoon, it will be destroyed. If she chose the hammer, it will not be destroyed, etc. Like they didn't know what they were choosing, actually. They would just choose something, and the result will be always destroying what they wanted and giving it back to them, and so on. It was like, fun to be mean to the people. There was one girl that chose a camera that we had, like an old camera, and we destroyed it. Okay. So this is a project where there is like a 2 lines crossing. One is with Dan, we would work a lot with this interaction with the media. This is electricity in the body of Peter. Well, he was playing this acoustic. It's the circuit that closes with the contact. Yeah, and then the thing is that there was also another layer of permeability here, not only with media but with people. So that became a completely different road to go, and from there I started working with interaction, but not in this way, because this way is like kind of superficial for me. Now I see like all the transformation on how to actually include another person in this dialogue of permeability. So in this performance, basically we just picked some information and used it, so it was more like a decoration. But how do you make a performance where there is interaction without you assigning to the other like a specific moment and role in the thing, but more how do you open a dialogue with the other through a piece. So this became the platform that I still work with, that the name is The Stranger Gets a Gift, and this performance that Sonia was mentioning is part of that. I would like to show you my very, very first attempt that I forgot this video existed. But now that I was looking for videos, I found it. And this was my first experiment on thinking how media can help me to be with someone through a symbolic way. Yeah, it's 4 minutes. This was a small room. You can see on the back the person sitting in a computer and then me in the front. And we would start chatting in the computer, in Skype. Then I would ask her to think about something she wanted to get rid of, and she was writing it in that paper. Yeah, so we ended with a chat, but now there was this feedback accompanying the chat. Yes, so what was interesting for me here is that the time we spent together was really meditative. And the person, you know, because you put something personal there, like a phrase, you're thinking, even if it's completely superficial, is something you put there. But somehow there was this recipe on how to transform that, and she was part of that recipe. So in a way, there was more space for the person than before, and then this action became symbolic as something which is occurring because we meet. So the media was creating a really nice distance because we never really touched or anything, but somehow I was placing, sand in her hands or cutting things that she wrote, and all of that had a symbolic charge on it that I felt that it had a lot of potential. So this, it's like probably 8 years ago or something like that, this video. So this evolved to a performance that the name is Interruptor, because it's interrupting the way that we are working with time. And also what was interesting for me was that there was this different way of being with a complete stranger, with another person. And that was really like fascinating, like how can you actually achieve these moments of meditation through working together in this, using the media. So I think the media helped to create enough distance to actually have that interaction without feeling like, oh, this is a participatory thing and now I have to, be part of the plan of this person who's manipulating me into that or all that, which I actually think happens quite a lot in the participatory works sometimes. So I would like to show you how this looked after working on it for a while and understanding how the person could have more freedom and how media could help me to do that. So the positioning was, I had to create a new place for a new person in this whole system. So this is it was premiered also in Prague in Alfred Vedvore. It was an installation in the big stage where you would encounter a lot of objects like just crap, things that might not have much value. And you will encounter this table with a projection on the table, and you would be given a manual so you know how the machine works, which is very simple. It's, again, a closed circuit. Yeah, so this person took her time. She's also an artist. Maybe you know her. Anyway, so this is how it happens. That the moment you want to start the performance, you place a hand in the table, and then this other hand appears. And this, in the beginning, can be a little bit like a childish game that you are like chasing the hand, or I don't know. But after 15 minutes of doing it, it changes quite a lot. Because your symbolic mind starts to operate, and you just have associations through objects and the gesture of the hands. That it's not pantomime or anything that you can decode. It's just space and time. And this performance lasts 45 minutes. So you really are there, like losing the sense of time. And it's quite strange that the person would spend with you such a long time without you using the socialized way of conversation. So basically, the invitation was to create a dialogue through this visual dialogue, we called it. So later on, it becomes something more symbolic. And this project, I've traveled a lot with it, so it has been also very interesting to see how in different countries with different people, this has really the same effect, which is like people really trip out, and when I have to inform them somehow that we need to stop for the next performance to begin, they are really resistant. Some of them really don't want to stop, and or the comments are like, I felt it was 20 minutes or things like this. So yeah, I think this performance is really opening the system, and instead of having like this kind of constellation that I showed you, the combination of things, is creating a completely different positioning of the interaction. It's creating a relationship, like the other person has agency and it's guiding the performance. The other thing is that this performance demands that you start performing at 10 and you finish performing at 10 in the night. In the beginning, I was doing it alone. So it also became like a retreat. Instead of going to the yoga meditation retreat, I was in this performance like the whole day. And my brain would explode a little bit, which was great because then, it's not working. And then it was always to be open for the person, like what the person is interested in, because there were so many things around, they can't possibly use all of it. So every person will basically decide what objects, what kind of things, do they want to have a narrative or not. It was very seldom that we will have some story. It was more like moments of coordination or meeting or not meeting. And so it is a bit hardcore. Then I asked people to work with me. So this video is another performer. It's not me performing here. Like for example, here they have like a very direct, almost verbal communication. In some other moments, it's much more symbolic. Maybe like this. It's like you don't know what you're doing, but somehow you're doing something together and it becomes really intense. And then people interpret that. So basically, we are creating meaning all the time and assigning meaning to everything. So, okay, so that's it, I guess. Do I have something more? Well, The Stranger Gets a Gift is, this is not the only performance that I have in this platform. There are other performances like audio performances that you go to, you arrive into, a space with two persons, two performers, you sit down, you wear your headphones, and then you have this binaural trip that it's combining what you're recording, picking at the moment, with recorded things. So at some point you don't know what's real. If there was someone walking around, but now there's no one there, then it's like you don't know exactly what is happening in the real time. We work also a little bit with theatrical elements like turning the lights off so you hear things, and then turning the lights on and it didn't really happen there, and these kind of things. And in the end we make like a chain. You leave a sound gift for the next person that will come. So this relational part started to be more and more important for me. So, the feeling that you work so hard in doing a performance and then you perform it how many times, especially if it's experimental, you won't have seasons of 50 performances in a row. So, the life of the work, it's not very long. So there was a moment where I also started to be interested in kind of a domino effect that the performances could have, like a chain of effects. So that came, okay, the idea of if you come to the performance, you leave a gift here for another person. And that kind of created a little bit of an echo. So the performance kind of, you own a part of the performance actually with that gift. So it starts to expand a little bit. I wanted to make one more drawing, but these drawings for me are so important, but then people see them and might not mean anything to the others. But yeah, maybe I would just do it there. So, yes, so again, we start with the subject as a trigger, But then there are all these things that are happening in between the other and me, which is like media, basically objects, materials, or I don't know, these projectors and the cameras. And I don't know, the installation, all of that. And okay, through that I go to another subject, right? Like this, far away. But the thing is that the thing is that I'm not being only like, okay, I am the person who's preparing all this, and I offer to you this. Through this, I offer to you a performance. But actually, it starts to be both ways, like this. So in fact, it is like a feedback as the feedback in the image, but it is like the feedback of relationships. So when you come to the performance, I cannot know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to work in between us. But then the performance creates the space for you to give me something back, and when I receive that, I can give it back to you, and like to generate some sort of cycle. So the positioning of the subject is completely different than when we saw in the beginning, no? And that for me has been like the most interesting part of thinking performance as a relationship, and that's the last part of the relations that I was writing about in the annotation, because at the moment I am working on a project that has to do only with relationships. So basically there's almost not media involved, but it's only about creating relationships with people I meet as strangers, people that I meet kind of accidentally. And then we engage in an interaction of creation and collaboration. But I think that chapter will be very long because I'm starting to work with it. Yes, so The Insider, that's the project that we're doing now, has to do with virtual reality. And I won't say much, maybe, because some of you might still come, I don't know. Or next year, yeah. Okay, so I won't say much. But it has to do also with this overlapping of presences. But this time it's you who experience that, and not the performers. So basically, the performer is just enabling for you that space in which you can kind of experience this virtual real simultaneously. And you do whatever how you react, however you want to react to it. So yeah, I guess I won't say more than that. Combining, okay, touchscapes and video and so on. Yes, yeah, I don't know if you have some questions or what. It's already 1 hour, I think, of showing you things. Or if you want to see a little bit more of something. Well, I am interested in the relationship with things that are kind of things that you get in daily basis, so that you don't assign too much value to them. So I like to work with what I have. That's also why I haven't migrated into, for example, video mapping. Or, I still want to have the relationship with the crappy camera, with a crappy projector, with a crappy cable. So in a way, I like that these abandoned things around, and I like to recover the value through working with them. And the materials that I chose for that project have to do, obviously, with the potential of the material, like what the material can do for the interaction, and I guess personal predilections, like I love these glasses and things also because of these cameras and how I work with the light. So there's like predilections and also potentials. That table that you saw had universes, and there was like nature and glass and I don't know, kind of game objects and so on. And the materials we chose for Insider have to do with touchscapes. So basically, because we are working with the sense of touch, then the material that has the potential to provoke you in that way, that's what we choose. So it's quite functional. It has to do again with the system, that it's not like, you know, if it's a good combination, then it works with the other things.
So thank you very much for the lecture. We don't, through our studies, we don't, I think on interactive media department, we don't meet so much, or basically never a person who works your way, meaning that you are not like exploring or technology, like pushing boundaries or reflecting the power of technology, but working really like coming back to the like human, very human connection or tactile experience or one-to-one and so on. So when I experience your performances or work, it's like very meditative for me, which is like completely opposite that I was ever used to experience with like media, mixed media, whatever art pieces. My question is, could you maybe like tell us or the students, because I little bit know how you work, there is like kind of long process behind it, and can you maybe say a little bit about the theory or what you read, or what are your philosophers that you are inspired by? Some like little theoretical, very maybe, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I guess with this thing of the systems, it's like Latour is like I mean, it doesn't mean that I read that and that's why I work like this, but it's more like I work like this, and then I found that it makes complete sense with his vision of this actor network theory. Exactly, yeah. And so then the media as an agent is enabling things as well, you know. And then I was also sometimes having this some writings about how a camera has defined me. You know, it's not because like it's nothing mystical or too technical, but it's just like the camera actually can give me some possibilities that are related with the quality of communication I can have with the other person. For example, in this project, the camera that was always able to, you know, the shutter speed I can change manually, everything, and then like kind of cheap cameras are not possible to manipulate. You know, they have all these things that are not manual. So then it was a disaster because in a tour this camera broke and it was super difficult to get another one to replace it because it's old, and you know, all these kind of things. So what I'm saying is that the objects themselves had much more power than what I realized. So reading Latour is like saying like, yeah, makes complete sense. There is one phenomenologist that I have been following, that it's also Matthew Radcliffe, that he's also writing about the sense of being, and has to do a lot with this kind of performances in which, you know, how do you construct the mood or the feeling of being here? Like, what is this background feeling that holds you? And he works a lot reflecting on how the sense of touch or sight affect that sense of being present. Like, actually, what is the thing that, you know, when you are like saying, I don't know, I was there, but I was completely unaware of what was happening. So how can that happen? Like, you are there, you're present, you're listening, you're. So then he's observing how we construct our sense of reality and perception. And it doesn't happen often that I read something and therefore I work in some way, but maybe also how other people is working is interesting to see, of course, like with Francis. I mean, this is a kind of old but how Francis Bacon is thinking about accident and control, and how he includes this process in his way of creating. That affected a lot that I would stop being the center, like the subject of the process.
If nobody has, I have one more like complementary question to this. You operate like let's say on two different levels while you are teaching on DAMU, like theater school, and then you are teaching or like art academy, let's say, or design academy, and like if you meet these different approaches from like theoretical background and like let's say art background and or scenes which are not overlapping so much. Can you compare like the reactions or the like let's say like the feedback or like the different? It's a very wide question, but I don't. You know what I mean, maybe.
No, I don't know what you mean.
That you are like on one side you are teaching at the theater school, and on the second, like if I understood correctly, like Prague College is more like visual art school and the theoretical. So if you like talk about your topics with these two different group of people that are not overlapping so much from my point of view. What are the differences in this world that you observe through your work?
Yes.
Maybe it's a difficult question, I'm sorry.
No, now I understand.
But it's really interesting for me because now I really like live in these situations of theater and...
double reality?
Yeah. Double reality.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. Working with, in the context of the theater, I have to say I work in a very specific frame, which is this devised, directing of devised theater, which means already that's not following a lot of the things that have to do with, let's say, like more formal classical theater. So the idea of experimentation is very different in the two places, I think. So in one side there is the technical side of it. The Prague College is working. You are more focused on the tool, and in the theater, of course, you're more focused on the content, on or what is the potential of the presence and the combination of different elements together and so on. I will show you a collaboration between the two, these two places. Yes. Because we did for this 4 Days in Motion festival, we did an installation with the group of the master of this devised theater, and there were some people helping from Prague College. So I think that they really completed each other. This is going to be short. I hope you can catch some glimpses, because the thing is that they're quite self-sufficient also, the students in the master degree in DAMU, thinking about technology. But for example, we basically replicated the presence of people in the space. So some of them, the collaboration would be like how people in Prague College could offer the different ways of working with the media or with the projections. And how people from DAMU could actually think what is the sense of this, you know, because of course you can always project something, but what is the dramaturgy of it? Even, you know, like if there is this was an installation in which you saw yourself replicated in different places. Yeah. In this case, this is the work of Lea that was making a phone call. You will receive a phone call and you will hear a description of actually a moment of dying. How does it feel? How it starts in the body. And then in another room, they would be projecting this camera live into this room, which looked a little bit like a funerary space with some flowers. So it was an invasion of image in the space with the unfortunately I have right now not at hand other images, but it was like, you have projections all over the place, but it's not only pleasant to see it, but it actually moves you in a way. Like there is, I don't know, this woman in a room walking around the room with a chalk in cycles, and then you see her replicated in the room, and it's just like, this person who's there and some sort of claustrophobia or trapped at some point. Then she leaves the room, but then her presence stays there, so it's this permanent thing. So I think that the challenge is that how all these things that we can actually produce with media can have this emotional content. For me, it's difficult to find that combination. It's not only pleasant, but it's also affects me emotionally. That was a long answer, I think. No?
Or if someone has a question and is ashamed to ask, you can approach you personally.
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Jakub, you have it? Okay, so thank you very much. And if somebody comes tomorrow, you are all welcome for the opening of Insider Project here in Brno. And thanks a lot again.
Yep. Good night.